So we are on for our Monday Mindset, fourth part of our Motivation Hack series. It's been an incredible month, incredible experience hanging out with all of you. Fourth part. And the reason why we're here to talk about motivation at the beginning of the school year is no accident. A lot of times, we can use motivation strategies all throughout the year, but especially when we're here, heading into the school year, where we're wondering, like, how are we going to motivate our kids to keep their masks on, or to use hand sanitizer, or to listen to their teacher's requests? How are we going to motivate them to do their homework, to get out of bed in the morning, to get out the door on time, to, complete their chores at the end of a long day? We have a lot of questions right now about motivation, and it's really important that I get these tools into your hands, at least the very first step you can take in these 5 key areas where we can boost motivation, not because the kids are scared or because they're worried about a punishment or losing a privilege. Also, not just to earn something like in a transactional kind of way where they're getting something for doing things that are maybe just everyday things. I have worked with several clients in just the past 2 or 3 weeks. One that's in a private intensive with me. We've been working together for about 3 months now. We're in the middle of a 6-month intensive. Another who just signed up and we're getting started. They both have older kids, 12 to 15 years old. And we've been talking about how to help kids get on board with, treating their personal responsibilities, like cleaning up after themselves, messes they make, taking care of their own personal items, contributing to some basic household things as well. We've been talking about how to motivate them so that it's not this constant power struggle where you feel like either you have to let this kind of behavior slide where they're refusing to do things or they're not helpful, and you get to have a good relationship with them, or you have to kind of harp on them and nag, and they do end up being more responsible, but then your relationship is strained. How many of you can relate to that? Right. So we started hacking away at, what is it about this, these tasks and about this kind of communication that's happening between them and their children that is breaking down. And we did a diagnostic, and we always come back to several themes. And one of them is that motivation in general hasn't been addressed as a whole family unit. In other words, how to create motivation, sort of what feels like out of thin air sometimes, without having to bring in the rewards and the punishments. Doing it because you have that sense of what we talked about last week, relatedness, of like, oh, like if I have a negative impact on my physical environment, then it's my responsibility to remedy that and clean up, for example. And was really clear with these teens and tweens. Now, I need to know, if you're here, it would be great to know where you're tuning in from, but I need to know the ages of your kids. So if you could put in, like, I would say, El Cerrito, California. I have a 22 and 26-year-old stepchildren and a 7-year-old bonus child in my household. And I want to know, what is the number one thing, if you could have it today, a breakthrough around your child being more motivated? Is it for them to, do their homework more independently? Is it to get their chores done? What would it be for you? Like for these 2 parents, it was, we want to have a breakthrough around chores so that we aren't in constant power struggles and fights that wear us down and strain our relationship. That would be the one, probably the number one breakthrough that my 2 clients would want right now that we're working through, for example. Because we're gonna roll through all 5 hacks today, since this is our last piece of our motivation puzzle in the I care model. So I'm going to put in the word I care, I-C-A-R-E, are the 2 words, but it's the acronym I care. And if you've been listening, I would love for you to take a moment right now and put in what those letters represent. What is the I? What is the C? What is the A? What is the R? And today we're going to be doing a deeper dive in the E, which is for effort, because oftentimes what can get in the way, and this goes for adults too, so listen carefully if this is you too. One of the obstacles can be that we have a belief that when we put in effort, it won't produce the results that we hope for. So it's not even worth putting the effort into it. You might think, oh, like I can't possibly have a good experience at this party because I don't do parties well. And so you have this belief that there's no way I'd have a good time at this party, so I'm not even going to put in the effort. I'll just show up and leave. But I'm not going to try anything new or make an effort to make some connections or make an effort to prepare something to bring that would be fun to do. I'm just not going to bother. Okay. So that's an obstacle that can happen with your kids too, is that they have a belief that for some reason they've come to the conclusion that if I put effort in here, it's not going to matter. It's not going to make a difference. I'm still going to be, let's say if it's about academics, I'm still going to be bad at math, or I'm not going to learn how to read. That might be where their belief around effort is fixed. It could be that, no, I'm not going to try singing because I already have this idea that I'm not a musical person, or I don't have a good voice. And so I'm not going to put in the effort to maybe try singing or humming or whistling, or maybe just, reading along with the words, or even learn how to sing better, right? To like improve your aperture and your tone and things like that. There's actual techniques, but maybe because of that idea that I'm already bad at this, or I know I'm not good at this, they get fixed. So today we're diving into E for effort, but I'm wondering if anybody who's here could tell me, first of all, where you're tuning in from, ages of your kids, and what is like the number one motivation breakthrough you would love to have. We've been having great conversations in the comments, and so it's really helpful to know who's here and what you're hoping to get, so I can support you. You'll be so glad you did. You'll see in the other videos, like lots of great conversations happening. So after you do that, if any of you have been here for a while, I want you to guess what the I, C, A, and R might stand for in the I care model. But today I just gave you the E. The E is for effort. And why effort? Well, like I was just sharing, it's tied to what is also called a growth mindset. And for those of you who don't know about Carol Dweck's research, I really recommend Carol Dweck's mindset research. And it's a book called Mindset that really lays out what growth mindset is. So she coined the term growth mindset and fixed mindset. And I want to make sure to give her credit. She's a principal researcher out of Stanford University. And this research has been tested time and time again, over and over, lots of variations, and over the last about 2 decades. And what the research community has discovered, and what I've seen since I've been looking at this concept in the classroom with my kids, with my parent mentees, is that when we have growth mindset, we do believe that with effort, with adding some attention, some time, spending some energy, we can develop ourselves. So the opposite of that would be fixed mindset, where it won't matter how much time, energy, attention, and effort you put into something, you won't improve. You can't grow that ability. That's a fixed mindset. So the way growth mindset can show up is that you'll say something like, wow, I really don't know. I don't know how to write a cursive R. Let's say it's one of your kids working on handwriting. And instead of saying cursive R's are too hard, I'll never be able to do this. Fixed mindset. I'm not good at cursive. Fixed mindset. I have bad handwriting. All fixed. The growth mindset would sound something like, well, I don't know how to make an R, cursive R, yet. It's pretty tricky. I wonder if there's some way to learn how, there's some right fit strategy, some tool I could use to learn how to do this. Let me think of a time where I was stuck on another cursive letter or another type of task, and I had a breakthrough about it, and I learned how. So for like a young child, it might sound something like, I'll try again, I'll keep trying, or can you help me? Can you show me? Or it could be just, they just do it. They don't say anything. They just keep trying. How many of you have seen your child be perseverant through something that wasn't easy at first? Yeah. And the good news is that the nature of humanity, of humans that we see in child development, and I've observed with my very own eyes, is that children do want to construct themselves. They want to construct their physical selves by, learning how to move their body and coordinate it and balance, and all, develop their senses. They want to smell things, they want to touch things, they want to see things. That's all to develop their sensorial systems and their physical body, right? They also want to develop their sense of their place in the world, like how do different relationships work? Well, how does power work? How does attention work? How does sort of like siblings work, and all these different things. They want to understand, how do you greet someone? How do you say goodbye? Like, we're just constantly helping them with that, and they do pay attention. And I know every single one of you have seen a child repeat something they've heard somewhere else because they're trying out a new social script. They're trying out a way to navigate social worlds. They also want to eventually, as they grow older, they start to get interested in developing their own brains, the way they think, the way they manage their feelings, the way they, develop their own characteristics, like being patient, being kind, being thoughtful, being a good friend, right? So these are all things that children naturally are inclined to develop. However, it can sometimes only take one tricky or negative experience with any of these types of activities, or sort of situations where, or even getting feedback that they're not good at something, that can make them shift to that fixed mindset where they're like, oh, I must not be good at blank. How many of you can think of, and I'd love to hear in the comments, please, there's 4 people here, say hello so I know who you are. Back. Oops, looks like we might have frozen for a second. I think we're back. That an adult might have given you some feedback that would possibly lead to you having a more fixed mindset about something. Maybe it was the way you carried yourself, like, oh, you've got bad posture, or you've got good posture. Maybe it was something about the way you solved a problem, like, oh, you must be smart. Or like, wow, you're not very bright, are you? Something that's very like judgmental of who you are in a fixed way. I can think of it. I was definitely told a lot that I was smart, but also that I was too sensitive. And so I carried around this idea that I don't have the capacity for resilience, which is part of what led me into this research. I'm like, excuse me, can you be sensitive and resilient at the same time? And then also, I remember hearing that you're smart, you can do anything. But then when I had an undiagnosed learning challenge, I didn't want to tell anybody my struggles, because it would actually possibly go against that story and discredit the story that I'm smart, right? Or the evaluation that I'm smart. And so I hid it for a very long time, worried about what it would do to sort of my, the way my parents and my community perceived me and treated me, because I would get such great positive like attention and energy when I would get a good grade, or I would do well in school. So you can see how there's a difference here between fixed and growth mindset, right? So instead, if someone said, wow, you seem to have some big feelings you're experiencing, there are certain tools and strategies you can use if you tend to be a feeling person, like you very sensitive to, the feelings of others, or you feel your feelings really, in a very big way. So that would have been, so maybe it's like, yeah, you seem to cry and don't really know how to stop yet. I wonder if there's a way to kind of help you soothe yourself so that you can learn ways that you can calm down that aren't punitive, right? That would be more of a growth mindset version, instead of saying, oh, you're too sensitive. Yeah. Or for example, with the smart one, it's sort of like, wow, I've noticed that you really have a lot of concentration and put quite a bit of effort into learning your, let's say, times tables. I wonder how you became so fast at it. Oh, you spent a lot of hours with flashcards. Wow. So you must have quite a bit of intelligence, but what I'm seeing is you're putting a lot of effort into it as well. And it's those efforts that are really paying off. And so you shift the focus from fixed qualities to sort of plastic qualities, like things that can be grown, and especially your efforts. Like, so notice that fixed qualities are sort of like things that you can't help. They're just something you're born with. It's either you've got it or you don't. Or you've got a lot of it or you've got a little bit of it, which we have found is actually not that true. Like, it turns out like we all do have sort of a set point that we start at, but then we all, and like a set point that we can reach. Like, we're not all going to be Michael Phelps level Olympic swimmers. However, all of us have a certain set point of like where we start with our swimming ability, and then we can grow it up to a certain point. Like, our potential is usually greater than what we've reached in most areas of our lives. And so the truth of the matter is, even though you have these fixed qualities or like set points that you start from, or things that you tend to have strengths in, all of them can be, every part of you can continue to grow. And effort, why effort? Is because effort is a choice. Yeah, you can choose to put more effort into something. You can choose to put more attention, more focus, more resources into something. I like to tell my parent clients who end up spending a year with me or do a 6-month intensive with me that they have growth mindset. Just for the very fact that, and those of you who are here right now, you have growth mindset around your parenting. You must, because you're putting time and attention right here, just like my clients put time and attention into their, their mentorship programs. So that's the good news. You have growth mindset. So what can we do to help our kids have more growth mindset? Well, the number one thing, and how does it relate to motivation? So the number one thing I want to put out there is that the power of one single word. And I'm just even going to put it on a little card here. And I want you to see it. I'm going to make it pretty big here. And the reason why this word is so powerful is because whenever you find yourself in a fixed mindset, you can shift it. And it's not that difficult to shift if you allow yourself to really harness the power of this word I'm about to share with you. And so what I want you to practice this with me right now. I want you to put in the comments, or you can think of it to yourself if you're not able to type right now. I know some people are just listening and can't get on the keyboard, but if you can, I really encourage you to do this along with me. I want you to write down something that you could catch yourself having a fixed mindset about. Like, it's hard because I've blasted a lot of mine, but I think one could be, one I used to have is, I'll never learn how to play, or I don't know how to play any musical instruments. And I'll even say now, like, I don't know how to play the piano very well. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And about 4 years ago, that was a pretty fair assessment. But then I would even say something like, yeah, I'm not very good at instruments, or I'm not very good at music. I can sing, but I can't really play any instruments well. Mm-hmm. So go ahead and write yours down. I'll give you a moment to do that. And I'll put mine in the comments just to show you as an example. Can't play instruments, any instruments well. And you can also think of, this is a good time to notice, like, are there any that you know your child has? Are there any that you've noticed your child has any fixed mindset around? Another I have is probably I'll never be back in the kind of shape I was when I was younger. That's actually, if I'm being totally vulnerable and honest right now, I have this perspective right now that I'm working on, this fixed mindset. So so it's sort of like I can't get back in shape. A lot of people experience this after like 35, 38. Yeah, I'm 41. So, okay. So what would you put in there as your fixed mindset? I'm so curious. I'm not getting any comments in. If you're thinking about it, it would be great for you to drop it in if you could. Because what I want you to add to the other end of it is this word. Yet. Yet. So the power of yet. I can't play any instruments well, Yet. I can't get back into the kind of shape I was when I was younger yet. So the reason why yet, if you add it on the end of anything that's a fixed mindset, helps you to realize like, oh, there is a possibility. And yet means perhaps in the near future. Yeah, perhaps in the near future. So I'm going to say harness the power of ... yet. Mm-hmm. So I want you to go ahead and take the statements that you wrote down or the ones that you thought of that your children might be also saying to themselves. I'm not good at math yet. I'm not very athletic yet. Or even the ones that you're saying to yourself out loud or telling other people out loud in front of your kids. Because knowing about the power of yet and actually using it as a role model in front of your kids is instrumental in shifting things for the whole family. So catch yourself. What are you saying that sounds like a fixed mindset, right? It's like, oh, I'm not that kind of, I don't do that kind of thing very well. You know, it's different from having a boundary, right? You can have a boundary and say, I prefer not, I choose or I prefer not to do that activity, right? So someone invites you to play baseball and you're really not interested, or you know your back is a little delicate, you could just say, you know, I'm not really interested in that right now, but I'd love to come watch, right? Or something like that is different than saying, I'm not a very athletic person, no, or I'm not good at sports, you know. Those kinds of things are more fixed mindset, where maybe what your true message is, I'm not interested, which is fine. But we don't need to say fixed mindset statements to ourselves and in front of our kids in order to have boundaries. That's a distinction I wanted to make, because it's not just about saying yes to everything and putting effort into everything. We can't do that. However, I've had parents do some smart things around this where they modeled the growth mindset for their child. Two that come to mind is I had this one client who was wanting to get their child into something more physical, and because they were spending a lot of time at home, especially sheltering in place, didn't really want to go outside. And so they stumbled upon their child's interests. And by the way, we're going to go through the eye care model right now. So they stumbled upon an interest, which is they were really enjoying these old Kung Fu movies and were like acting out some of it. And so they said, oh, well, why don't we, so there's interest there, for the eye care model. Why don't we look and see if there are any virtual lessons? And so they found these virtual karate lessons and signed up for it. But the child said, oh, but I don't know how to do this yet. And so for C, competence, because they were worried about whether or not they were going to, be able to keep up with the class. How many of you been there, right? I've taken a hip hop class and gotten lost immediately. But so the parents said, well, what if we contact the instructor and see if we can get them, have them share, break down a couple steps that you could practice before your first class. And so competence has to do with like noticing where a skill is needed and breaking it down into smaller steps and asking for help. So we went with the child's interests. They were already kind of trying to figure out how to do these moves. So that was motivating. We busted through the competence barrier by asking for help and breaking into smaller steps. And then autonomy-wise, they asked the child, okay, would you like to start with 2 classes a week or 1 class a week? Another way you can do that is saying like, would you like to start next week or in 2 weeks? Just building in some choices. Another choice could be, where in the house would you like to do this? There are 2 options. You can do it out on the patio, so you can be outside, or you can do it in the living room. So, or like you can use your iPad or you can use my laptop. Giving in choices, the A for autonomy, is really an important part, because kids and people are motivated when they have a little more influence, a little more control, a little more power in the situation. So asking the key question, where can my child have more influence or choice? Yeah. So that's ICA, interest, competence, autonomy. We're rolling right through it. Now, relatedness, child got on the first class and was kind of embarrassed because they didn't know any of the kids. But so the instructor did a really smart thing and paused and had everybody play an icebreaker game where they got to all name some of their favorite things, favorite animal, favorite ice cream, things that are easy. And then the child started to feel a little bit more connected to the other kids, and then also wanted to make sure that that they went over their names, so when they called names, they could know who was being called, even though this child was unfamiliar with the group. R for relatedness. So relatedness is the power of connection, and it's asking like, how can I either find folks to join me so I can be in good company, or find a way to connect with the company I have. And so the instructor did a really good job of doing that. Also, because they did that before session, the student, this child, felt more comfortable with the instructor, and they already had a little bit of a connection. One of the things that the instructor did that was so key was shared a personal story about their pet, and even said, "Look at my dog." And so there's something fun that they could connect over. And then they kind of like did a little show and tell of their pets. So there was something besides just the business at hand, right? The broken down steps. So R for relatedness was alive and well, but then there was still one more block, which was the E for effort. And it was not in the first class. The first class went pretty well. Once the icebreaker happened, the I, C, A, and R were all happening, no problem. But when it got to the second or third class, there was this pretty complicated move. And it required, as many of your kids will run into over and over again, it required patience, frustration tolerance, being able to feel frustrated and confused and work through that. I myself continue to work on that because of the way that I associated getting things quickly with being smart, with being loved. And so when things take a while for me to understand or figure out, I actually can have a low threshold for that frustration and that confusion. And I actually end up like, my lid flips, I can like cry and have a whole meltdown. So that's what happened with this child. How many of you seen that with your child? Having a low tolerance to frustration, confusion, or that sort of thing. Now, this is where things started to shift into a fixed mindset for the child. The child started to make up a story. Remember I said, if you have a negative experience with something, sometimes you make up a fixed story about it. He said, I'm bad at this. I suck at karate. Like really talking negatively about themselves is a big symptom of fixed mindset. I'm the worst at this. I hate this. I don't ever want to do it again. And this is after like 2 or 3 pretty good classes. It just hit this one spot where some flooding and lid flipping happened, which I'll explain a little bit more in another training, or some of you know about who've been with me for a while. And they just couldn't quite put their lid back on beyond like, yeah, they calmed down, but they still had this mindset about karate now and themselves, more importantly, how good they are at karate or how much they're able to do karate. So the breakthrough that happened next had everything to do with E for effort and growth mindset, where the parent decided to also take karate classes so that they could model what it's like to get to that point where you're confused or frustrated and work through it with optimism, with a growth mindset. Like, I bet if I practice and put in some effort, this tricky thing might become easier. Of course, this is harder. It's more complicated. Of course, I'll need to put more effort in. Of course, I'll need more practice, right? Just modeling that compassion for themselves, and also just like this kind of smart strategy of, you're not going to get a complicated thing the first time. So be prepared to practice and fail and fail and fail until you finally succeed. Brene Brown would say, like in one of her stories, I saw her for a keynote many, many years ago to a ballroom of like, I think it was 10,000 Montessori teachers. I was like in the 5th row, like, it's Brene Brown. Some people knew her, some people didn't at that point, but I was so excited. And she said that we do our kids a disservice when we praise them for everything they do. And instead, sometimes what they need is encouragement with honest feedback. So the example she had was of her kid doing a flip turn. Flip turn, flip turn, flip turn. And she would do one, and then she'd pop her head up out of the pool and kind of look at her mom, and her mom would be like, try again. Yeah. And try again, right? And like, try again, right? And she got 9 of these, 10 of these, 11 of these, 12 of these. By the 13th time or so, I don't remember the exact number from the story, she went. And then her daughter was so proud of herself But if she'd just been like, good job, keep going, and didn't actually give her that feedback, then she would have skipped the strategy that Carol Dweck in her growth mindset, she'd actually updated her definition of growth mindset and succeeding. It's not just believing you can, it's finding the right tool or strategy to advance towards your goal. So in this case, the parent, back to the story with the karate, the parent was modeling the strategy of accepting that hard things might take some hard work and a lot of practice, and modeling that when they do get frustrated, they can walk away, take a break, and come back, and actually being willing to try something new that they had honestly, this parent had never considered themselves a candidate for martial arts and had probably said a lot of things about them being uncoordinated and not having good balance. It's these kinds of things I'm not good at. But they decided to show their child and to also practice for themselves growth mindset. So then child refused to go to class for a few times, but saw the parent, and the parents shared the stories. About a month later, started practicing with their parent. And then a couple weeks later was ready to go back to class and had learned this incredible life lesson. And the life lesson is sometimes you'll run into obstacles where you have all the right ingredients, right? Like you're interested, you have a sense of like, I know how to get started. You feel connected, you feel like you have some choice, right? Like the parent also let them choose to take a break from classes and then, but to return, they said, well, we're not going to quit, but we can take a break and we'll try something else for a little while. And then we'll return within 3 months, setting some parameters. Even with all those things in place and feeling connected to the students and instructor, it can break down when growth mindset, when fixed mindset sweeps in, kind of swoops in and takes over. You've all seen it. You've laid it all out perfectly. You feel like, as best as you could, and it just comes tumbling down. So that's why I save it for last. As you see, you don't always need to address a fixed mindset. However, if you don't, you can run those other ones, ICAR, over and over again. And sometimes it will shift the fixed to growth mindset, but other times it won't. And I've had parents come to me being like, my kid's 2 years behind now in math, or 2 years behind in reading. And it's because they're avoiding it. They're refusing to do it. They're saying these awful things about it and then melting down. And then I feel horrible pushing the issue. So I just sort of let it go. Well, guess what? You're kind of giving them the oh, it's okay, let's just keep going, instead of the try again, feedback. So, and also you're not necessarily addressing that deeper issue of the fixed mindset. So if there's nothing else you could take away from these 5 ideas, the ICARE, and the last 4 weeks, this week and the last 3 weeks, so this 4-part series, mind your mindset. Mind your mindset and model the power of yet, and praise the effort. Encourage children to keep striving once they've set a goal, and to use the interest. How can we make this more interesting so that you can, if there's something really repetitive, how can we make it go a little faster or more enjoyably? 2, competence. How can we break this down into smaller steps? Get some help if we need it. 3, autonomy. How can we build in some choices? R, relatedness. How can we either get connected to the people who are already here, or bring in somebody who would be great company, and even tune into the impact this has on others. And then E, effort, is mind your mindset. Really notice if you're bringing that growth mindset in. Now, I know that you've gotten some great tips this week that you can go and try out right away. I also know what happens after you hear great ideas. You'll go try once and it doesn't work and you go, oh, well, or you try something a few times, but then things change and you're not quite sure how to handle it. Let's say your child is onto you and sees that you're using a strategy and calls you on it. That's happened to my clients. Then what I would invite you to consider is taking this assessment that I've created to help you get to the root of what could possibly be getting in the way of your vision for your family. And when I say vision, I don't just mean we're happy and we're connected and we love each other. That's the big picture, but I want to get a little more granular. Things like routines that run really smoothly, my kid really listens when I set a rule or have an expectation, and they're like motivated to do the routines, motivated to meet those expectations, and motivated to really develop themselves, like we're talking about now. Maybe it's how your kid handles emotions and even yourself in the family system. Like I'll be talking to one of my clients today about how, things can devolve into fights pretty quickly, and she just really doesn't want to have that reactivity anymore. Maybe that's what something you want to work on. So, or maybe it's how your family does conflicts. Maybe there's another caregiver that you want to get more on the same page. Whatever it is for you, you can answer this series of questions in the quiz that I just posted in the Facebook group, and it should be also, if you're watching YouTube, it should be down in the description below, where you can answer these questions. And I've had over 250 people, I think it is now, take this quiz and learn something from it. And then at the bottom, there's also an opportunity to have a breakthrough strategy session with me. Because like Carol Dweck said, it's not just about knowing that you can grow and change and putting in the effort. It's also finding the right fit tool or strategy to actually advance things, to actually develop, to get those results to where you want to go. For example, if you wanted to become great at karate and you put in a lot of effort to maybe mimicking something you see in a movie over and over and over again, that's a strategy that can only get you so far. Whereas signing up for karate classes with a really talented instructor who can like read where you are and give you feedback on your form and kind of lay out a personalized plan of like what to focus on next, whether it's core strength or it's your flexibility or if it's a certain series of movements, your potential for growth multiplies, sometimes exponentially. Yeah. And so taking a quiz or getting some feedback from an expert or from someone who can do that, like personalized things, help you figure out what do you need to focus on? Is it your routines? Is it how you handle big emotions in your household? Is it how you yourself, like your own coping strategies for staying calm as a parent? These are all things that are available to you, but I need to know where to point you to. And you do too, perhaps. So my invitation is that, if you don't want to just sort of figure it out on your own, after you take the quiz, also apply for a strategy session with me. And you'll be happy you did. I have so many folks who are like, oh, so glad that they went through this process. Just these couple steps, just to take you like 15 minutes at the most. And we all have that. We all have 15 minutes. So that's my invitation to you. I also want you to know that there is a routines webinar that is absolutely free. It's coming up on September 11th. My gift to you and the community. And what you can learn in this routines webinar is my top tips for how to create routines that run smoothly, especially in this really wild back to school time. I mean, we are in one of the most unusual circumstances we've been in a very long time, coming back to school where we're still figuring out how we're all going to stay as safe as possible from a disease that's created a global pandemic. We all know the situation, and it looks different in every family. But what I'm going to address are 5 tried and true strategies that work for reestablishing any kinds of routines, whether it's the morning routine, the afternoon routine, the mask and hand washing routine that a lot of us are now wanting our kids to really adopt and become more independent in, so that you can have less of those conflicts where you're nagging them to do things, reminding them a bunch of times, having to get loud, having to threaten, having to bribe, get out of the cycles of negotiation if that's how it goes in your household. And for many, like chronic, dealing with chronic lateness to getting out the door, getting to school on time, or hitting that bedtime time on time. So whatever it is for you, we can absolutely address that in this webinar. It's totally free. And the link is in the chat or in the comments. So I really recommend that you go ahead and click on that link and register. And then you'll get reminders and the Zoom link to the webinar and everything. It will not be in this group. It's going to be in its own Zoom room. And you do need to register to access it. Okay. If for some reason that date doesn't work for you, the replay will be available, but I'll be doing some live feedback and coaching. It's very interactive. So do try to make time. It's September 11th at 10 a.m. Pacific time. And it'll run about an hour and a half, but I'll stay after for some Q&A as well. So you can get some direct coaching. So it's a really great opportunity for you to say, you know what, I'm going to take some steps to improve my routine. And maybe you have a fixed mindset of like, well, this is just my job in the mornings. I'm managing all the activity. I have to give lots of reminders. It's just how it is. You know, there's no way to improve this. Well, I would challenge you to add the word yet. There's no way to improve this yet, because when you have the right tool or strategy for improving your routines, then you can go ahead and use that tool or strategy and see improvements. Like every single one of my clients in the last several years, and every single family I've ever worked with has benefited, and every child has benefited from robust routines that run smoothly. Every single one. There has not been a single family that I've said, don't worry about it. You don't need to worry about your routines. It doesn't make any difference. It makes so much of a difference, especially around just experience of daily life together. So you can have more ease, and maybe you'll start your day feeling energized instead of already worn out from having all the things happen that happened that morning to get them out the door. Or maybe bedtime will go so smoothly that you have an extra hour at the end of the night when you're usually struggling to get your kid in bed, to be able to have, you know, some downtime with your partner or for yourself. So it's really worth it. If I haven't convinced you yet, I don't know what will. I can tell you about 20 stories, but we don't have time, about why of clients who have had breakthroughs around their routines and how it improved their lives. I've had people work with me exclusively to work on the morning and evening routines for 6 months, 6-month intensives. And we got everything running so smoothly in the first 3 months that we got to just spend the other 3 months geeking out on everything else, like the tantrums and meltdowns, the homework, the homeschooling. Like there was just so many other things we got to talk about because we got those routines down. It's so exciting. So come to the routines workshop. Let me help you get them running more smoothly. Okay, we'll see you there. Otherwise, we'll be back next week. Or actually, next week is Labor Day. We're taking the Monday off. I'm taking the Monday off. I think you should too. From screen time that afternoon, go out, be outdoors with your family if you can, or have some downtime indoors. And then in 2 weeks, we'll be back for 2 Ask Me Anythings. And so that's where I'll be addressing questions that people have been asking, either in the comments of these videos, and or as new Facebook members join, they always have something they really want to focus on, and I'll be addressing those, some of my more popular segments. So come back in 2 Mondays at 2 p.m. Otherwise, we'll see you at the Routines webinar on September 11th. All right, y'all, lots of love to you. Until next time. And it's not too late to comment on Facebook. We've got 3 or 4 people here still. Where you're tuning in from, the ages of your kids, and any questions. And I especially, if you made it to the end, want to hear what's one takeaway that you don't want to forget. What's one thing that if you were to roll away with it today about growth mindset, about effort, about motivation, or anything else we've covered that you would love to hold on to? What's your gem? What's your, little spark that you don't want to forget? Stick it in the comments for each other, but also for yourself. It's true that when you hear something, you have a retention level of somewhere between 10 and 20%. If you write something down, you have something, it boosts up to 30, sometimes 40%. If you share it with others, it tends to hit 50% or higher. So just by the act of writing it out, sharing it with others, this is a total learning strategy, can boost the chances of you remembering what it was that you got out of this training. So please go ahead and share it in there. Last week it was about connecting before correcting, to use that R, that relatedness was a big one that stood out. Another one was offering choices of how things, of like what the consequences could be if expectation wasn't followed. That was for autonomy. And there's others, but I wonder what it is for growth mindset. One thing I'm going to say is praise the effort, not the results, is my key thing that I always like to do. And then I also want to really look at, like, mind your mindset yourself. Are you modeling a growth mindset or a fixed mindset? Those are my 2 that I would love for all of you to have, but maybe have your own. And Kala's back. Hey, Kala. Yes, with your 9, 8, 8, and 5. You came at the very end. Yeah, do watch it again. It'll be posted in just a minute. Awesome. And please put comments in, Kayla. I will reply to you on the replay. All right, y'all. Lots of love. See you next time. Until then, be well, and yeah, motivate with the I Care model. See what you can do next. Is it boosting with interest? Is it addressing competence issues? Is it building in more choices with the autonomy piece? Is it maybe focusing more on those relationships, or really bringing this growth mindset with the effort piece? Until next time, take care.